With the best of England and France now covered, we now turn our attention to the best of the great southern lands of Australia and New Zealand Rugby League. Yes, hello and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for Rugby League. Alongside Mark Henry, I am Connor Marcellus, and today we begin our previews of the NRL's best, starting off with the Brisbane Broncos. That is such an awkward phrase to use with not only one of the best sides in Australia, jokes, that they have just finished with the wooden spoon for the first time in 32 years.
Broncos fans would not have been happy. They just couldn't click. Like, having 3 wins and 17 losses, that's just dismal for like a team that dominates the southeast of Queensland. It's very dismal and upsetting for the Broncos fans.
I'll give you one word to sum up the Broncos in 2020, and this word has probably been used right across the world, outside the game and inside the game. Diabolical. That's what they were. First time they've fallen to the wooden spoon. I mean, even in the darker years with Griffin, perhaps, but even then they were not nowhere near the 8.
No. See what the new coach, Kevin Waters, can do for him.
Well, he's got to fix the worst attack and the worst defence in the league. And they did have former Hollisey interim coach Peter Gentle in charge. It still didn't peter out that way.
No, it did not at all. So they've got a new coaching staff, see if it works out for them, and try and fix the defence and attack, and try and catapult them up the ladder.
Look, they just got to fix everything. I mean, we think back to March last year. They were 2-0. Now, I know 2 games is not a strong indicator of where the Broncos were, but they beat the Cowboys convincingly, and then a fellow premiership contender, the Rabbitohs, they knock off at Suncorp Stadium behind closed doors. But then what happened after that?
Only 1 win, and maybe the lockdown period didn't help them as much, and injuries, and that didn't help them either. So
it did. It looked evident against Parramatta in the first game back, especially when the 6 again rule was introduced, I should say. Parramatta tore apart the Broncos forward pack, and the Roosters did the same thing the following week.
Yeah,
that was just embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, see, the Broncos might not have been able to get their head around the new rules properly, which was the 6 again rule. The moving is, you got to pick out where the scrums were, and what was the other one? The 2040 rule.
2040 came and started the year. The 6 again and came at the restart.
Still a new rule, but they might have not got their head around it quite properly. So, and even the captain's challenge, that's probably the one that hurt them a lot. Maybe not knowing when to use it properly, and if they obviously didn't get it right, it's unsuccessful and they get it swiped. But maybe they'll be working on that during the off-season for sure.
Yeah, well, I think there's only one standout in the Broncos side this year, and that was Katoni Staggs.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
Watching him play, it's just beautiful to watch. I mean, Broncos' top try scorer, and the fact that he was crowned one of the Dally M Centres of the Year, with the Broncos finishing last, it just sums up where they currently stand.
Yeah, mind-blowing that after having a team that performed so poorly throughout the season, and to be, like you said, get Dally M Centre of the Year, it's pretty impressive. So that's one of a few standout plays for him in 2020.
I mean, he would have been picked for the Blues as a utility option had he not suffered long-term injury.
Yeah. He would have definitely been in a squad for the Blues, but whether or not he got game time would have been a different story. But injury, unfortunately, cut that out.
I think it'd be interesting to see how much Tavita Pangai Jr. improves, because we saw him at his destructive best when you played him in the front row, but then biosecurity dramas and off-field discretions, it just derailed him.
Yeah, and he needs to work on his discipline too.
Off the field, especially.
Off the field.
And on the field. We can't forget the on-the-field discretions.
On the field and off the field, but
I think the fact that Kevin is keeping him around, I think he's lucky this time. But next time, he's gone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he is lucky to still be there playing for the Broncos. They could have easily shafted him, but Kevin Walters just sticking with him, so that's good. Hopefully, like I said, working on his disciplines on and off the field.
Yeah, while Pangai Jr. is staying with Brisbane, these players are not. Darius Boyd, of course, entered retirement. David Fafita, the biggest blow to the Broncos probably since losing, Alfie Langer, Wally Lewis?
Darren Lockyer,
yeah.
Yeah.
Jack Bird leaves for the St. George Illawarra Dragons. And Joe Offengawi off to the West Tigers. At this stage, we don't know if Jordan Kahu's got a new club to go to. Matt Gillett also entering retirement. And Sean O'Sullivan off to the Warriors.
And we got Richie Kennar also that we don't know what's happening with him.
Yes, that is the case. On the other side of the equation, we've got David Mead coming in from the Catalan Dragons at the moment. So apparently French taste does not apply to St. George Illawarra with Braden Williami and even Israel Folau. We'll talk about him more when we get to the Dragons at this point.
Yep.
Albert Kelly coming in from Hull of Sea on a train and trial deal. John Asiata in from the Cowboys. Eva Harpulu, also a train and trial deal from the Warriors. And Andrew McCulloch comes back from the Knights.
After his loan deal had finished up. But it's kind of good that the Broncos got him back because he's had like longer off season because he unfortunately got injured at Newcastle. Yeah, not many games into his loan deal, so they might be sweating on that a little bit for the Bronx, but see how they go with him back.
I think out of all these signings, I think Asiata is probably the smartest signing they do have.
Yeah.
You're talking about a forward with ball playing ability and good versatility that could even play in the halves. And I think even with the new rules, which allow 6 agains for offside or inside the 10 meters, that is probably going to be key to a smaller forward like Asiata's frame.
Yeah. You don't see many forwards that have got good ball playing skills very often, but he's one of those, so it's a good sign. Also, maybe why the Broncos didn't go so well last year is because they didn't have the experience of Andrew McCulloch, but now he's back. He might be able to produce that experience again and help them rise.
Apparently they've also got Isaac Luke retained on a train and trial deal as well, don't they?
What I've got here is that he's been released, so he could be. I don't know, 100% sure.
I'm pretty sure they said train and trial somewhere. I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're in the same story as literally every other wooden spooner team. The only way they can go, apart from staying where they are, like the Knights of 2015-17, is to go up.
Yes, they can go up. But with the NRL being such a tight, close competition, who knows, they could be back down there again, but hopefully they are not for the Bronx fans.
Well, I think the first 5 rounds will be a big indicator of where the Broncos actually sit. And because the NRL has been able to get biosecurity concerns sorted, we've actually got the fixtures list for the first 5 rounds into the Broncos. And I'm looking at the first 5 rounds. They face the Parramatta Eels Friday night, which is going to be very ugly with Parramatta out for blood and the Premiership.
Yeah, definitely.
Round 2, a grudge match against the Gold Coast Titans Friday night.
Well, the Titans did beat the Broncos twice last year.
And so the first time round by an even uglier score margin. Yeah. And this will be the first time David Fafita faces off against his former club.
Yeah, so you got the little brother going for the third straight win against the big brother.
Round 3 is a Saturday evening match against the Canterbury Bulldogs. We'll get to them shortly.
That will be a very close match, considering they both finished 15th and 16th on the ladder.
Good Friday, playing against the Melbourne Storm in Amy Park, which they have not travelled well recently. And speaking of more grudge matches, Wayne Bennett against Kevy Walters, South Sydney at Stadium Australia in round 5 on a Thursday night.
Yeah, that will be another good match, whether it's going to be close or not, which everyone hopes to be. We'll just have to see how both teams perform in the first 4 weeks of the season.
Exactly. Well, considering 2 top 4 sides a preliminary finalist, and you got two sides in the Titans and the Bulldogs up. I think the Broncos would be lucky if they managed to get one win out of that, let alone 2 or 3 wins.
In the first few weeks, yeah, they'll be lucky. The probably best chance out of the first few weeks or whatever would probably be
The Dogs. I'd have to say
Dogs.
the Dogs. As a
Dogs
Canterbury
or
fan,
Titans.
in the last 6 years, we have not had a good record at Suncorp Stadium. So I think if the Broncos were to get a win, it would be against Canterbury. But I mean, Parramatta, Gold Coast, Melbourne, South Sydney, they'll steamroll Brisbane, depending on who's fit and available. But that's my take on it.
They said Broncos could upset the Titans as well, but yeah, I don't, like you said, I'd say the Bulldogs will be their best chance of getting one win in the first 5 weeks.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Prediction time. Last year, the Broncos finished 16th and were disgraced to get to Wooden Spoon. Mark, where did the Broncos climb to this year?
Probably not much higher than where they finished, to be completely honest with you. They may get the Wooden Spoon again, but they could be probably, I'd say, as high as 14th.
14th?
As high in 14th to 16th, probably in that bracket. But I'd say they'll be trying to push for 14th at best.
All right. Well, I reckon there's going to be improvement in this side, but not too much. So I'm going to say the Broncos in 2021, they finish 15th. All right. Now we've got the Canberra Raiders to talk about. Wow, this has been an impressive stint for them. Runners-up in the 2019 Grand Final.
Controversially,
yes. 6 again, big controversy. And then they lost John Bateman for the first half of the season after he did his shoulder in the Great Britain tour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was going to be a lot of pressure to back up that Grand Final appearance. But signing George Williams from the Wigan Warriors, that was a masterstroke from Ricky Stewart. He has a good taste in his English players.
No doubt about it. And George Williams came in and looked like he settled in pretty much straight away and did what he had to do and helped them get up into the finals again. As you were saying about John Bateman, losing him, they also lost Josh Hodgson at the back end of the season.
Round 9, it's sort of round 9 they lost him, and I think did they gain him back, or was
No, not this time round.
Now, you see, if they lost Hodgson anywhere between 2017-18, which they did, they wouldn't have made the finals.
No.
This Raiders side, this much improved Raiders side, they've proven everyone wrong that they are capable of going the distance with or without Hodgson.
Yeah. I'd say their premiership window is open now. Just need to try. Obviously, they came so close in 2019, and then they got knocked out in the, I don't know what week.
It was the preliminary final.
Prelim, so a week short of the grand final. So hopefully they can get that one back into the grand final again for this season and win it.
It was a good, strong start. They backed their defence big time. They only conceded 1 try over the 3 weeks between March and May. But then it sort of derailed for a moment when they met Newcastle in round 4.
Yeah. But like you said, losing John Bateman didn't help, but they got him back, so that was good. And they made a bit of a run to the finals, which was good to see.
They were still good enough to finish 5th, and they were easily in contention for the top 4, with the Roosters and Parramatta looking a little bit vulnerable at the back end. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. It just came down to who had probably the better for and against, to be honest, because the Raiders and Roosters are both equal on points at the end of the season.
But for and against would have split them.
Yeah, see, the Raiders had a for and against difference of 128, and the Roosters had 230. So it's just the Roosters had the bigger point, the difference between the for and against. So that's what got them into 4th, and the Raiders ended up being 5th.
Yeah, I think the fulcrum of the Raiders attack, and this was, I think, a surprise to everyone. Dally M Player of the Year, Jack White, and George Williams, they were easily the standout players. I mean, you look at White and play, you don't know, you're sort of stuck. Do you try and tackle him, or you try and slide out and try and tackle him under legs? But either way, he'll either step you, or with his large frame, he'll just beat you with speed and brute force.
Yeah. They were, Whiten and Williams were probably one of the best halves combinations in the NRL last season, and hopefully they can continue over next year. As to what you said with Jack Whiten, it's kind of a mind game. You can either try and read his mind, see what he's going to do, or if you try and read it, he'll do the opposite thing. So,
yeah, it's just big, lanky friend you're trying to take on. It's like facing Wade Graham, but he's in the halves and not on an edge.
Yeah.
And George Williams, 15 try assists in 22 appearances. They were definitely the better side, even without Josh Hodgson and from mid-July.
Yeah. George Williams definitely stepped up when they lost Hodgson, no doubt about it. And like at least having 15 try assists in 22 appearances to come into the NRL, that's pretty impressive.
Where it's been sort of like, I wouldn't say a myth, but it's been sort of a trend that top-line English backs and halves, well, I think it's more the backs. This is the first pure English half we've had come out because Gareth Widdop was sort of around Melbourne's under-20 system. Then he was brought up.
Yeah. But other than that, they have signed another English player, as in Harry Rushton,
Yes.
from the Wigan Warriors.
It's a bit of a rookie, but from Sean Wayne's academy setup.
Yep. They've got former Titan Ryan James, Albert Hopperwade from Manly, and young fullback Caleb Akers from Penrith.
Yeah, and
which Penrith won't be happy about.
On the other side, the Raiders won't be happy about this one, losing John Bateman back to the Wigan Warriors so he can be closer to his daughter who lives in Bradford.
Yep.
Nick Kotrick, the Raiders' top try scorer, departing for the Canterbury Bulldogs, and Michael Oldfield, a bit of outside back depth, leaving for the Parramatta Eels.
Yep. The biggest loss though is John Bateman.
Arguably.
They're gonna really miss him. But if you're looking at the squad overall, they've got the depth. They can do it time and time again.
And they've all played NRL games at some point, even if it's just one. They've been talking about the Raiders as having the most experienced depth you'll have anywhere in the league.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Losing a top try scorer, Nick Kotrick to the Dogs. It'll be interesting to see who replaces him. I think it will be Bailey Simonson to replace him, but I could be wrong.
You also got to figure in that Curtis Scott's got to probably have a better year than he did last year. And Jordan Rapana is back on his natural side of the right edge. So
yeah,
I think you're looking at a duel between Simonson and Rapana. Maybe even a wild card, Semi Valame get some more game time. And he could definitely get some more game time with Jared Croker not being available for, what was it, the first 4 rounds?
I think so, for the first 4 weeks. So.
I definitely have Valame in my starting 17, and we'll post our predicted round 1 lineups for these 4 teams today, later on this afternoon.
Yep.
But getting back to Canberra, I think you're looking at a top 5 that's trying to fit into a top 4. They've got to face the Storm and the Roosters twice, which is a bit of a stretch, while also at the same time looking at their first 5 rounds. You got Sunday afternoon against the West Tigers.
That should be a breeze.
It should definitely be a breeze, even with the Tigers recruits.
Yep.
Facing their favourite team to play, the Cronulla Sharks, in round 2 on a Sunday night.
So the first 2 they should get the W.
Against the Warriors at home in Canberra.
Yeah, that's going to be a tight one, to be honest.
I think the Warriors will definitely be a funny one because we're looking at a side that's going to spend the first 2 months of the season in Australia from January up until about March, and then they'll go home. So it could really be a dangerous game to play.
Well, even when the Warriors came, I know we're going a bit off topic, but the Warriors, even when they came out and played at Central Coast, they played pretty good. Like, even the whole season, men away from home and away from their families and that, they played really well. And they carried that momentum into 2021. It could be very much of a grudge match between the Raiders and the Warriors in round 3.
Round 4, Saturday night against the Titans on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, that'll be another good close game.
I think Canberra could still come out on that. Their recent record against the Titans has been very good.
Yeah, that's true though.
And to wrap it off, round 5 on a Friday night against Penrith. Now, this one, we've seen how the Raiders have played against Penrith in the last few times they have, and it's been ugly every time.
Yeah.
Well, the last 2 especially.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
But yeah, that should be a good grudge match to honour both, I would say, the 31st anniversary of the 1990 Grand Final and the 30th anniversary of the 91 Grand Final.
Yeah. Who's going to get revenge on who? We don't know.
I would think Penrith would still come out a little bit on top.
Yeah, more than likely.
But I think with this top 5 and the top 4, I think John Bateman would have made the difference. Had he stayed, I would have the Raiders in the top 4. But I think without his edge and without his drive to compete and to win, the Raiders are still a good side. Don't get me wrong, but you're still looking at a top 5 into a top 4. And I mean, last year they finished 5th and were in the preliminary final. I think they finished 5th again, but they've definitely demonstrated that you can go the distance if necessary.
Isn't there a curse going around that every team that's finished in the top 4 has made a grand final? At least 2 of them have. Isn't that a curse going around? I think so. Because I don't think anyone at bottom 4 have gone on into the grand final for a while.
Well, I think the last 2 teams to do it, the Bulldogs in 2014 and the Cowboys in 2017, went the distance, but then South Sydney and Melbourne both dispatched with them with ease.
I agree with Connor. I reckon they will finish again in 5th, but I reckon they can go to distance and win it.
Yeah. Well, majority consensus, the Canberra Raiders to finish in 5th.
Yep.
Okay, and here we go. My boys, the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. All right, I'll be the first to admit, I am a little bit one-eyed. For the last 2 years, I've picked the Dogs as both the premiers and to finish in the top 8 last year. Yeah, I'll admit that. I am one-eyed, but I am maintaining strict objectivity here, and this was practically a disaster again.
More than
worse than the last 2 years.
It's more of a disaster. Although it wasn't as bad as the Broncos, though, which is a good thing.
At the start we had tight games against Parramatta and North Queensland before Manly just sliced us up. Before getting our first win in the Queen's birthday match against St George Illawarra, where we demonstrated why we still are a competitive side, holding them tryless, 22-2.
Yeah.
But even though we were trying, it was just still not enough.
You can't say that the Bulldogs do not try. They absolutely try as hard as they can, but they can't just quite finish some games off or can't quite hold the lead at half-time.
It's the same story every year. It's the attack and it's the squad we have. Now, I think we've got a good couple of gems in that side, but we have struggled with the halves in recent years. I mean, turning over Trent Hodkinson, Moses Mbai, and Josh Reynolds, and you're rotating between Lachlan Lewis, Kieran Foran, Jake Averillo, and Brandon Waken, as well as Jack Cogger. It's not a good start.
It's way too inconsistent. They need to stick with the halves and play with it. And if one of the halves don't play well, well then yes, you swap it out and try another combination. But if they do that in pre-season, like even like an internal game between like half the Bulldog squad versus half a Bulldog squad, or even pre-season trial games, trial a little bit with different halves combinations, see what ones work, and then execute that in round 1 and for the season.
Yeah, it wasn't enough to save Dean Pay, unfortunately, with 1 win and 3 actually close games, with if the first round, the 2 first up results, and then the Sharks after the restart. And Steve Georgalis came in as interim coach. He delivered us. That's right. Pay was sacked after round 9, so that was about 2-9 record for the Dogs at the back end.
Yeah, they did. They seem to be performing a lot better under Steve Georgalis.
And we
got
did
a couple of gutsy wins
against Newcastle and South Sydney. So when we do get wins, they just happen to be against top 8 sides at various points.
They also came very close to the Raiders as well.
Oh yeah, we were up 20-12 at halftime, but again, we didn't know what to do with a halftime lead, and we just fell away.
Yeah. But even being close to the Raiders, it shows that they are trying.
Yeah. Well, there definitely wasn't much opportunity to be the best of the Dogs. I mean, you had Kieran Foran in and out with injury. Luke Thompson had only just come across against South Sydney, and
The inconsistent halves combinations, I'd say, is what.
And chopping and changing the fullbacks as well.
Yeah, that didn't help either. But maybe with bringing Kyle Flanagan in, he'll probably be starting the halves, no doubt about it.
He's the marquee halfback. That's what he is.
Yeah, and I feel he'll probably play alongside Lachlan Lewis.
I would think Lewis is the most likely. Of course, new coach Trent Barrett's sort of teasing maybe Brandon Wakeham, maybe Jake Aparillo as a run and fire IVA perhaps, but I would still give Lewis one more crack because we view him as the future of the club, but I think at this rate, with Flanagan signing and Matt Burton coming in 2022, time's not on Lewis's side.
No, so he basically needs to perform this season, otherwise he'll be out of the starting 17, and Matt Burton and then there could be a potentially Matt Burton, Cole Flanagan halves combination in 22, depending on how Lachlan Lewis performs. So he needs to perform, but he's also off contract at the end of the year, so that doesn't help his cause either.
I think one player that will get better under Trent Barrett, and building on his 2020 form, Raymond Faitala Mariner. I think his strong game, and not to mention the fact he was joint top try scorer alongside Nick Meaney on that left edge. It was sort of like there was promise in this Bulldog side.
Oh, no doubt about that. He's one of the workhorses in that Bulldog side.
And 30 missed tackles from 622 made all year, so that's pretty good.
That's a really good stat.
And this is an interesting thing as well. Out of all the tackles he's made across the 2020 season, he has never missed more than greater than 4 times by the right edge. Never missed more than 4 tackles on those occasions when he was facing up against right edge attacks.
Unbelievable. For a forward, that's really good. I know the forwards are big hitters anyway, but to only miss that many tackles in a season, that's unbelievable.
Also joining Carl Flanagan and at Belmore, we got Nick Kopchak from the Canberra Raiders, Jack Hetherington from the Penrith Panthers, Corey Waddell from the Manly Sea Eagles, and the surprise one, Corey Allen from the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Yeah, and you've also got Matt Doria promoted from a development contract.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely promise in this Bulldog side. With the salary cap cleared up now, it's sort of like we're now being able to attract these good sort of players and build this good squad that can come back and make a good run at the finals.
Well, even from 2022 onwards, when you got Matt Burton and a big name signing coming in, Josh Adokar, mate, they'll be trying to work up there and then bring them 2 players in, they'll be up there again. So watch out for the Bulldogs. Everyone will be a bit scared at the top of the town, I say, over the next couple of years. That's just my view, but
I mean, I don't buy the fact that people would probably think the Bulldogs are a wooden spoon contender. I think the way we've recruited, I don't think we will be a wooden spoon contender. But in saying that, we're not going to be a top 8 contender straight away. And looking at the first 5 rounds we've got, against Newcastle, in Newcastle first up. Now, I think our good run of form against the Knights and the Hunter, I think we'll come away with a win.
Yeah.
Saturday, round 2 against Penrith at Bankwest Stadium. We have not had a good run either against Penrith or at Bankwest Stadium. So Penrith, I should be a little bit iffy about that result, even with all the recruits we've made, including Trent Barrett.
Yeah, I'd say Penrith will win that one, unfortunately.
Against the Broncos, that's a seesaw that could go either way.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Good Friday crash against the Rabbitohs. It's always a good game to watch.
Mate, if I was to watch a Good Friday game every year, it would be the Bulldogs Rabbitohs. They turn it on, regardless of how bad or good they are playing in the first 3 weeks. They always are tight, close matches, and it gets so intense at times.
You only have to look back for the records of Good Friday clashes. I mean, you had Sam Burgess running full steam at the Canterbury defence, the whole 2015 controversy in the grand final rematch with the the Adam Reynolds field goal charge down and all of that. And then, of course, rallying back from a 9-8 deficit to win 24-9.
So ever since that Bulldogs Rabbitohs Queen's birthday game, whenever since it was
Good Friday.
Sorry, not Queen's birthday, Good Friday. Ever since that's been a locked in fixture every year, it's been impressive game to watch. One of the best games of the season.
And our final clash, all the way out at HBF Park in Perth, we are facing the reigning premiers, the Storm. We got tailed up by Melbourne on the last time. And even with Luke Thompson back in the lineup, I'm not convinced we're going to get past Melbourne.
Not against Melbourne. But it is a bit of a neutral ground. Yes, I know there has been games played at HBF Park before.
It's good hunting ground for the Rabbitohs, but...
Yeah, but...
And we did beat Melbourne the last time we were also out at Perth, so...
That was at Optus Stadium, wasn't it?
No.
Sorry.
The last time we were here on this ground, we did beat Melbourne, but no, Optus Stadium, we definitely lost that one.
Yeah. I don't see the Dogs getting past the Storm. The Storm were just way too good, unfortunately.
I mean, I think we'll definitely win more games by a try or less, but against the stronger rosters like your Melbournes, your Roosters, and your Rabbitohs, we're still going to lose out to them. So, but we're still a good side. They'll be on the way up in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Last year, they were 15th and second last on the ladder. I'm going to be more optimistic, and I'm going to say they finished 11th this year.
Yeah, but they have... I kind of agree. I reckon they'll finish at least 12th. At least. They're not going to be in the top 8. They're not going to be in the bottom 4. So, I'd say it'll be round in a mid-pack on the way up. Losing another strike weapon out wide of Montoya doesn't help. Oh, he's gone to the Warriors. Tolman gone to the Sharks. That's a bit of a sad note because he's been like another workhorse for the Dogs. Kieran Foran being in and out was a bit hard.
I think many people regard this as sort of like a win-win scenario, that we get this 5'8" offload that's been inconsistent to us and Manly get a favourite son back.
Yeah. Watch Manly rise too. You got losing Sue to the Knights and Jack Cogger
to the Huddersfield Giants. But I think the worst loss we've had, Remus Smith to the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
I still can't understand the logic why we would lose Remus Smith, but then again, we have gained Kotrick and we have gained Addo Carr, so...
And also Corey Allen, who can play out there too, as well as fullback.
Yeah, but I think we should never have let Remus Smith walk. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Bit of a bad move by the Dogs, but let's see if it pays off by, like as you said, getting Addo Carr next year. You got Corey Allen, Nick Kotrick, and you got Christian Crichton as well.
So one that says 11th, the other that says 12th. That's how you sum up the Canterbury Bulldogs in 2021.
Now, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. They've been in the media just recently.
Yes, they definitely have. Signing St George Illawarra skipper Cam McInnes from 2022 onwards.
Yep. As a Dragons fan myself, when I heard this news, I was not happy. I was more furious about it. I was like, why didn't we sign our most consistent player over the last 3 or so years? But no. And all talks about him going to the Tigers, but the Sharks have snuck under and snapped him up. So the Sharks, it was a good signing for him, a good signing for the Sharks from 22 right through to 25. So, yes. But also getting Adam Tolman, that will boost the forward pack up a bit.
The leadership qualities down at the Sharks, the sort of the void left by Paul Gallen and Luke Lewis when they retired in 2018. But yeah. You're looking at a Cronulla side that, on their way to squeaking into the finals, did not beat a top 8 side once. They did not beat Parramatta. They were beaten badly by the Roosters. They narrowly lost to the Melbourne Storm. They couldn't hang on against the Rabbitohs.
No.
And I think the Raiders, they lost badly. Penrith, ultimately, that was disaster on both occasions.
Yeah.
And the Knights as well, when Chad Townsend got sent off for his flying shoulder tackle on Ulan Ponga.
Yeah. So literally, the Sharks made it in based on their for and against. They were both exactly 480.
Yeah, but how many wins did they have in contrast to the Gold Coast?
Titans had 9 wins and the Sharks had 10 wins.
Yeah,
and then the Sharks had 10 losses and the Titans had 11. I personally felt if there was a few more games in the season, Sharks would have been out easily.
Well, 2020 was definitely a roller coaster, but not just the Sharks, but I would also think John Morris's blood pressure.
No doubt about it.
Well, I mean, they were 1-4 after 5 rounds, and there was all the talk that after Steve Kearney got the sack, they were saying John Morris was going to be next. But
that didn't happen.
To Morris's credit, he did dig the Sharks out of that hole, and they had 2 separate occasions where they had a 3-game winning run to cement their place in the top 8. So they fought their way in, but it ended in the same fashion to the way they started. They had 2 straight losses in the closing stages, and then they were bounced out by the Raiders in the second half of their elimination final.
Yeah. I thought when the Sharks made the finals, they wouldn't make it very far, and that proved to be true.
And before suffering his ACL injury in the Roosters loss, it was because of Sean Johnson that the Sharks made it into the finals in the fashion they did.
Yeah.
He forced 18 goal line dropouts, and he set up 23 tries in 16 games, which ultimately arced Cronulla into life. I mean, he was the one setting up Mulatalo, setting up Katoa, and Jesse Raymond. He was literally trying to drag the Sharks into the top 8.
No doubt about that. And they did just scrape in. I personally feel that the Sharks signing Jesse Raymond again last season, that was a good signing. To bring him back to the club, he played a lot better, a lot more confidence, and had a lot more game time than what he did at Newcastle, where he didn't get that much game time. He wasn't getting the ball enough, so he couldn't perform at his best.
It's sort of Luke Lewis made that point when he was at Newcastle. Like, the Sharks always had a plan to shift to the right edge to get Rainey in the ball because they had a good left edge, but Newcastle just didn't apply that same logic. I mean, you had Edric Lee, Kalen Ponga, Mitchell Pearce, and Lachlan Fitzgibbon as your main strike weapons, all stacked out to the left, and no plans to shift it out to the right, which ultimately cost them in the end.
Yeah. I also feel that since Sean Johnson has arrived from the Sharks, he's had
it's mixed.
He's had
results.
Periods of his brilliance, but he hasn't been consistent. He hasn't been consistently good like he was at the Warriors week in, week out.
Goal kicking has been a problem in the past. I mean, there were instances where the Sharks could have won games if Johnson managed to kick the goal. I mean, games like against Melbourne in round 2, they could have forced it to golden point if the scores were locked at 12 or if he managed to get those conversions over, they could have tightened the scoreboard up against South Sydney in round 1, and then that could have also gone to golden point, especially considering that game was a forward pass difference between the Sharks losing and winning.
Yeah. He's like you said, the Sharks could have won a lot more games and been maybe a couple positions up further on the ladder than what they were if they got like the goals, the conversions, and that to help the points and like beat, like you said, Melbourne and Souths. But it didn't happen, so hopefully. But with him being out for the first
8 to 10 rounds.
Yeah, they're going to be in the back foot early, the Sharks, so they'll be trying to chase their tails at the back end of the season when he returns. Very depending on how other injuries happen across the season.
Yeah. So Aiden Tolman coming in, that's sort of try and stabilise as sort of like a leadership unit inside Cronulla. And Luke Metcalf coming back from Manly just sort of adds more options in the halves. I mean, when you got Connor Tracy and Braden Trindle sniffing around Chad Townsend for a starting berth, and Matt Moylan, of course, was looking to start the year at 5'8".
Well, even Matt Moore's been inconsistent in the last few years with this hamstring issue, so you can't. Yes, he can play fullback as well, but they're another club that kept chopping and changing the halves a bit. But it wasn't by their choice. It was because of Moylan's injuries, suspensions because of Chad Townsend's shoulder. So they haven't had the choice to keep a consistent halves.
Scott Sorensen leaving for the Penrith Panthers. Ultimately, he was trying to push for a contract, but in the end, I think with the quality of the Sharks forward pack, of the young forward pack, but give him a couple of years, the Sharks could easily be back right in the finals mix.
Oh, no doubt about that. They've got a good young forward pack coming through.
Jason Bakuya entering retirement and Cameron King also retiring, but linking up with the Townsville Blackhawks in the Queensland Cup.
So he's just retired from
the NRL.
NRL first. I know Townsville Blackhawks are first grade, but it's not as top grade as what the Sharks are. Also, Bryson Goodwin, we don't know about his future as of yet.
I'd imagine many professional commentators have been calling that the Sharks would finish outside of the 8 for the last few years. But I think this time there is accuracy to this possibility. I think without Sean Johnson for the first 2 months at least, the Sharks won't be able to recover. And I think if the Sharks manage to get in the first 9 rounds a 4-5 win record, a 5-4 win record, I should say at the very least, I think the Sharks do all right. But if it's anything less like a 4-5 or lower, they won't make the finals. But I think they'll do enough to not get the wooden spoon, but they're not going to escape the gravity that is the bottom 4. And I mean, you got the Dragons first up, which is going to be a very spicy grudge match from this point onwards.
Considering McInnes is joining his future club.
Burnley side in the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah, back to the Dragons Sharks game round 1. It's always a good clash between them two. Local derby. What more do you want?
Yeah. Then you've got to face the Eels at Bankwest Stadium in round 3, which most sides, they don't like playing at Bankwest Stadium. Only a couple of sides have actually been able to upstage the Eels at Bankwest Stadium.
The Eels have kind of made Bankwest Stadium a fortress like Brisbane has done with Suncorp.
And Manly at Brookvale Oval back in the day. Then they've got to face the Cowboys on Easter Saturday on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, it's away from home, so a bit of a neutral ground, but
I could give away spoiler alerts for what my thoughts are on North Queensland. I'm going to wait until we talk about the Cowboys in 2 weeks' time. And round it off, they got to face the Roosters at the Central Coast Stadium in round 5. So,
yeah, I don't see the Sharks winning that one against the Roosters.
When have they ever beaten the Roosters? Well, the last time they beat the Roosters.
Oh, I can't even remember it, to be honest.
Maybe 2017 they last beat the Roosters?
Something like that. It's been a bit of a drought for them. And I'll see that drought continuing, to be honest.
So last year, the Sharks squeaked into the top 8 and they got bounced out of the finals in the first week. I think they finished 13th this time round.
Yeah, I see them around the same area, to be honest. I'd say, Brisbane 14th, Dogs 12th. Yeah, I'd say they'll be around about that same area, so maybe even 15th. Be fighting to not get the spoon, to be honest. That's my thoughts for the Sharks.
Yeah, that certainly is. All right. Now, yesterday, the NRL officially announced the Harvey Norman NRL All-Stars lineups for the February 20 clash at the Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville.
Yes. First time it's been played up at that new stadium. It's a great stadium.
So they're actually hoping for, 25,000 crowd capacity at the moment?
I think so. Whatever crowd, it'll be better than nothing. Especially for the Indigenous All-Stars versus the Maori All-Stars. It's always a good game.
Yeah, it definitely is. Latrell Mitchell fit and available to play for the All-Stars. He starts at fullback for the Indigenous All-Stars. Wingers Blake Ferguson and Josh Addo-Carr. The centres are Jack Whiten and Jesse Ramian.
Who Jack Whiten is yet again playing out of position.
But it does it effectively.
Well, yes.
In the halves, you've got Cody Walker and Jamal Fogarty, which is sort of a bit of a rise for the Gold Coast halfback. I mean, he sort of was given the captaincy partway through last year, and now he's been given the starting berth for the Indigenous All-Stars.
Jamal Fogarty, he absolutely went to another level in 2020 and helped the Titans make that late run, but just ultimately missed out in the finals. So it's good that if he gets a rep game underneath his belt, and we could even maybe see him is he eligible for Queensland?
I'm not sure if he is eligible for Queensland or not. We might have to check with the QRL on that.
But even if he, it's still a rep game under his belt, so he can play, have more rep experience for other future games, whether it's in the World Cup or more Indigenous All-Stars games. It'd still be a good boost for him.
In the forwards, we got Tyrone Peachey packing down the scrum with new Gold Coast recruit David Fafita and Sharks captain Wade Graham.
Yep.
I think that will be a very dangerous back row to look at because I think we've unlocked Peachey as a lock, even with Big Tino joining the Gold Coast, and we'll go into more detail about how Peachey might be used next week. Fafita and Graham, what more can you say about that? Right edge Fafita and left edge Wade Graham. You've got raw power and experienced left-footed kicker on the other side.
Yeah.
Then up front, Andrew Fafita, Ruben Cotter, and Josh Kerr. It'll be interesting to see how Fafita goes because there's been all the talk of him medically retiring and even shedding weight to try and counter the new modifications to the 6 again rule.
Yeah.
And then a 6-man bench, Alex Johnston, Jermaine Tanoa Brown, Kate Cuss, Chris Smith, Tyrell Fui-Mayono, Josh Curran, and Brian Kelly.
They've got good backup options there if injury happens during the warm-ups or training sessions in the weeks leading up to it.
I think with All-Stars, they actually do have that bigger bench than they do in conventional NRL games.
I could be wrong.
Meanwhile, this is their opponents, the Maori All-Stars, starting off with Chance Nickel-Clockstad at fullback, Dallin Wateni-Zalesniak and Remus Smith, the wingers. In the centres, we have got Joey Manu and Dylan Walker, which I find actually surprising that Walker's still allowed to play at the moment, even though he's before the courts.
That's what I was just about to think. Why is Dylan Walker named to play when he's still got that court issue going on? Look, they've named him, so if he's free to play, he can go back in.
I think he is free to play, and especially round 1 as well. I think he's also free to play.
Yeah, but if things change, they've got Bailey Simonson or Patrick Herbert there that can slot in. With a few maybe swap couple around, but they've got Simonson and Herbert there to slot in if Walker's court case goes against him.
In the halves, we've got the young gun of Jerome Luai, partnered with Premiership-winning halfback Jerome Hughes.
They got the 2 Jeromes.
Yep. In the forwards, Joe Tarpany, locking down the scrum with Britton Nakora and Kenny Bromwich. Definitely can't leave Tarpany out of any side nowadays.
No, you can't. Not at all.
And up front, we got Jesse Bromwich, the Cheese himself, Brandon Smith, and James Fisher-Harris. I think this will be an interesting battle. You got inexperienced hooker like Ruben Cotter up against the Cheese, who wants to be a hooker, but he's more versatile considering he's a 90-kilo lock that gets smashed around every other day, even a front rower at that.
Yeah, but having him in the squad, like I said, another rep game. He'll be one of the key players for the Maori All-Stars.
And off the 6-man bench, Jeremy Marshall-King, Kevin Proctor, Nelson Asofa-Solomona, Jordan Rickey, Patrick Hurlick, Bailey Simonson, and the biggest inclusion of them all, Benji Marshall, now fresh as a Rabbitoh, into the Maori All-Stars lineup.
That is a bit of a surprise there for Benji to be in the Maori All-Stars squad. I didn't expect it. I don't think anyone expected it, to be honest.
Well, I don't think anyone expected him to be wearing red and green for his final career year in the NRL, I should say.
Well, that too, but him having been there in the squad can help guide the young ones through, like help guide Luai and Hughes to be better halves and be able to deal with the pressure in the scene. But yes, I know Hughes is a premiership winning halfback. That's a big scene. Luai, he's played in the grand final. He knows what it's like, but having just a bit more experience there will be able to help them out and also help out like all the young ones coming through.
I think if I'm looking at this carefully, it's sort of a tight contest. I'm trying to decide which backline's stronger. I definitely know the Indigenous All-Stars 4-pack is definitely stronger, even though with not many experienced dummy half options. But then you look at that Maori bench, I think it's going to be interesting, and we'll offer more context and our predictions next time. Join us next week as we preview another 4 clubs in the NRL. Can the Gold Coast Titans make the top 8? How far can Manly keep Tom Trbojevic and Kieran Foran out of the casualty ward? How will the Melbourne Storm adapt to life after Cameron Smith? And what is in store for the Homeless Warriors as they embark on their season start in Australia? And we also offer an extended take on our All-Stars prediction. Until then, this has been Connor Marcellus and Mark Henry for the Sideline Chat podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.